Many of my videos I mention not in the public interest, and it's a powerful legal term, but most people do not understand that. So let me go over it, take a walk through my mind on the net. The phrase not in the public interest is a legal and ethical standard used by governments, courts, and regulatory bodies. It indicates that certain actions, exemptions, and disclosures should be withheld because they would harm society, compromise safety, or undermine the administration of justice. How the standard is applied. Criminal justice procedures use public interest tests after determining there is enough evidence to convict. In pursuing a case would cause them undue harm or disproportionate to the offense, it may be dropped. Okay. Government transparency. When does that happen? Freedom of information laws allow authorities to withhold documents if releasing them threatens national security, law enforcement, or personal privacy. Media and courts, when deciding whether to name a juvenile offenders or protect journalist sources, courts balance the public right to know against the broader community interest in rehabilitation and safety. Corporate and financial regulation. Regulatory bodies block managers or ban financial contracts, such as certain prediction markets, if they encourage illegal activity or threaten the integrity of public markets. Common context. Debate over what falls outside the public interest office centers on the tension between transparency and harm. Public curiosity versus public importance. Information that satisfies public curiosity does not automatically make it in the public interest. To release, especially if it compromises ongoing investigations or individual well-being. Legal challenges. Public interest litigation allows concerns individuals and organizations challenge government abuses even if they aren't directly affected. Okay, so not in the public interest. Then I did a video on this. Sorry. You see, I take you a lot of different places. Somebody asked this question, and so I answered it. I actually put the question in the search bar. Yes, public servants are legally and ethically required to act in the public interest. The principle is summarized by foundational standards of public service is a public trust, meaning loyalty to the Constitution, laws, and ethical principles must always be placed above private gain. Legally and operationally, this translates for several core requirements. No personal gain. Public servants are prohibited from using their public office for private financial gain or to benefit friends and family. Avoid conflicts of interest. They must be held financial interest in conflict with official duties and must recuse themselves for decisions where conflict exists. Impartiality. Employers must act impartially and are forbidden from giving preferential treatment to any organization or individuals. Agencies have a strict regulation guiding these ethical duties. For instance, the Department of Justice outlines specific rules regarding misuse of position and government resources. And the Legal Information Institute provides a full context on 5 CFR 263.101, which details the basic obligations of public service. I did a video on the basic obligations of public service. So all you gotta do is click on misuse, the little blue thing, misuse of employee may not use his public office for his own private gain or that of persons, organizations which is associated personally in employer's position or title, not to be used to coerce or to endorse any product, service, or enterprise, and that happened on the White House lawn, or to give the appearance of government sanctions. An employee may use his official title and station only in response to a request for references or recommendations for someone who has dealt with the federal employment or someone he is recommending for federal employment. Use of official title. Generally, employee engaging in teaching, speaking, or writing it in his personal capacity may not use official title or position to identify himself in connection with the activity or to promote any book, seminar, course, program The exceptions to this rule are: an employee may allow the use of his title if it is included in part of several other biological details. Title given no more prominence than other information. An employee may allow to. Okay, but you're going to want to get into this. Personal use of government property. An employee should recognize their responsibility to protect and conserve government property and resources and make an honest effort to use their official time in government property only for official business. You see, that ain't happening. An employee may not use official time or of another employee for anything other than official business. You know that ain't happening. The use of any government property, including computers and the internet, for any partisan political activities is always prohibited. Department of Justice employees are generally authorized to make minimal personal use of most office equipment and library facilities where the cost of government is negligible and on an employee's own time. This is the department's de minimis use of policy and would permit an employee to send short personal electronic messages to another individual, while personal messages sent to a large group of people and messages sent to disseminate information of non-government activities such as charity events and causes, commercial activities. Personal business and religious observances are prohibited. So people, there's a lot of things you're missing out on. All right. Use of non-public information. Employee may not engage in financial transaction using non-public information or allow the use of information to further his private interests or those of another. Non-public information an employee gains on the job which has been made available to the general public is not authorized to be made available upon request. Use of official time. Disclosing people, this is I don't mean to laugh, but I have a lot of fun teaching you what I know. Nearly cost my demise. Okay, so our public servants required to do what's in the public interest. Yes. And let's see. People were talking about this. Oh, sorry. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission is a landmark 2010 Supreme Court decision that struck down limits on political spending by corporations and labor unions. By a 5-4 vote, the court ruled that independent political expenditures are a form of protected speech under the First Amendment. Corporation, labor unions, and other outside groups can spend an unlimited amount of money on political advocacy, provided the spending is not coordinated directly with the candidate's campaign. Equal speech rights. The courts established that political speech cannot be restricted merely because the speaker is a corporation rather than a natural human being. Disclosure requirements. While lifting spending bans, the court legally upheld requirements that political advertisers must disclose their donors and include disclaimers on their materials. Surge of dark money. It contributed to a massive increase in spending by nonprofits. Okay. Let's go there. Okay, the federal oath of public service, a solemn U.S. civil servants and uniformed personnel commits employee to supporting, defending the Constitution against all enemies faithfully. Okay, so the oath of public service, okay? So read that. Okay, let's go here. The rule of law is a fundamental legal principle and political principle stating that all individual institutions, governments, entities are accountable to laws that are publicly promulgated, equally enforced, and independently adjudicated. At its core, dedicates that No one, not even the highest ranking official, is above the law. Society governed by laws establish legal framework over the arbitrary power of individuals. Organizations like the World Justice Project define four universal principles. Accountability, both the government and private actors are answerable under the law. Just laws, that's the part I want to get. Just laws are clear. Public side stable and protective of fundamental human, civil, and property rights. Open government, this process by which laws are adopted, administrated, enforced, and accessible and fair. Impartial justice, justice is delivered timely by ethical, competent, and independent individuals. The principles trace the philosophy roots back to antiquity and with early concepts formed by Aristotle. Today, it is recognized as a vital component of democratic systems, functioning as a safeguard against tyranny, political corruption, and mob rule. To explore how these rule and law is defined and funded with the United States legal framework, visit the educational resources provided by the United States courts. That's when when I was younger and I used to go through books, I used to go mad, I mean, like crazy, going back and forth, just finding all this stuff. One thing always led to another, and I have an inquisitive mind, and I just started connecting the dots with all these laws, and, so again, not in the public interest. A legal principle standard describes actions, policies, and disclosures that would harm the general welfare, safety, and rights of the public rather than benefiting them. There's a lot of laws out there not in the public interest. Remember, it's a legal term. So when you hear it in my videos, when I say not in the public, in the interest of the bar, the law clearly, you've seen it. They cannot do what's in their best interest. They must do what's in the best interest of the public. Our corporations, Citizens United, dark money, that took away your vote. I mean, voting is essential, but they allowed these corporations to buy your politicians through campaign donations. Okay. Let's go here. Foundational principle of public service is public service is a public trust. Public service must put loyalty to constitutional laws and ethical principles above private gain, ensuring complete citizens' confidence in the integrity of the government. These fundamental requirements and constraints apply broadly to civil servants, government officials, and public trust roles. Key ethical principles above private gain. People, this goes for everybody in public service. Employees shall not use their public office for private gain or hold financial interest in conflict with their official duties. Impartiality. Employees must act impartially and for gain, giving preferential treatment to private organizations or individual. And they're giving preferential treatment to private organizations and individual that I find quite disturbing, that Elon Musk having people go in there and take all our personal information, and no, that's illegal. Authorized resources, use public resources and property must be protected, conserved, and used strictly for authorized activities. Managing outside the employment, employees must avoid outside activities or employment that conflicts with their official duties. Like with the Supreme Court justices hanging out with the Federalist Society. And what's his name? Jim Crow's kid, Harlan Crow. Commitment and integrity. Employers may make no unauthorized commitments that bind the government and must satisfy all financial obligations such as taxes. Reporting violations. Employees are obligated to report waste, fraud, and abuse and corruption to proper authorities. That's why they have whistleblower protections. This is, you have people that work in the government that are exposing the government, higher ups for their illegal activities, and then next thing you know, they're that Snowden guy. He left the country. He was exposing waste, fraud by the government, and when he took it to his higher ups, they didn't do anything. And it, what else? What other option did he have? Avoiding appearance of impropriety, employees must strive to avoid any actions that could reasonably create the appearance of breaking the law or violating established ethical principles. Ask yourself, how ethical is Citizens United? You can review the specific legal statutes governed rules via CF5 CFR 2635101 or the U.S. Department of Interior Basic Obligations. Okay, so I talked about that a lot. I did a few videos. For a comprehensive breakdown, the Department of Justice, a list of 14 general principles of ethical behavior. And I took you there before. Now, these are laws. Okay. So remember, it's all public servants are required to do what's in the public interest. So that's why I use that term a lot. Not in the public interest, and I combine it with in the interest of the bar. Because the bar, they get paid by their, whoever they're working for, and they don't care whether it's unethical or not, because they're using your ignorance of the law to persuade you. You think because lawyers and judges did it, that it's legal. Thus, it was actually under the color of law. Ignorance of law refers to a legal principle that unawareness of the law is not a valid offense. So, I mean, here they are. They're relying on your ignorance of the law, and they will tell you your ignorance of the law is no excuse. But how is their ignoring the law an excuse? And I would bring up these issues and sometimes in courts and helping people, and I would get yelled at by lawyers and judges, and been escorted out of criminal court cases when they would say something stupidly ridiculous, and I would say not in the public. I have a habit of throwing out all these terms. I had to stop doing it because I became incapacitated because of a wheelchair. And it's not easy to get around like I used to without it. Because sometimes people will get really angry and follow me and okay, so let's see. Conspiracy against rights under the color of whose federal crime where two or more people agree to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate other in a free exercise employment of their constitution or statutory rights, specifically while acting under the apparent government authority. This offense is aggressively prosecuted by federal authorities with the FBI designated as the lead investigating. It's I was surprised when I filed a complaint with them, but I had to go there with all my exculpatory evidence and all these laws, and I actually had them printed out on paper, and I was citing it word for word to the letter, and I told them, remember, violating the letter of the law, and I went over the consequences of violating the letter of the law, and they barely said anything. And I was talking for about 2.5 hours about these laws that they broke to make me look like the devil. Granted, I'm no saint, soy no santo, but the devil I am not. But they made me appear as the devil because of the things I said. And I had a consistency of reciting the law word for word to the letter. There are penalties for that. Look up penalties for violating the letter of the law. All right, people, but there's this big thing, and it's always bothered me, this decision by the Supreme Court. And they knew that wasn't in the public interest. And I stated to you why. People, you got to understand there's a lot of laws that, your public servants will make that are under the color of law. Okay? They're not in the public interest. I've talked to some people. I told them you have to put the simplicity into it. All right, if they're required to do in the public interest, and you yourself know that's not, no, you got right now the country uprising, and there's a lot of things that are being done that are not in the public interest. And it's because of the deception of our public servants, and they call that free speech, but how is it deceiving the general public, to get into office in the public interest? And then when they get into office, they violate the Constitution. No, you took an oath to that Constitution, without reservation. And then you get in, and then you decide the Constitution don't count no more because now you're in public service, and who's going to hold these laws against you? Because they actually do. They think they got qualified immunity. But qualified immunity does not apply when knowingly and willingly violating one's constitutional rights. Okay? So, violating the oath of office occurs when sworn public officials breaches their constitutional, legal, and judicial duties. In the U.S. legal political system, there are no signs criminal statutes specifically defined as a breach of oaths, so consequences of these violations may vary widely based on officials' positions and transgressions. When they took the oath requires them to do what's in the public interest. Okay? So they lied from the very beginning when they took the oath. They took the oath to get in, when they, and the oath requires them, to abide by the laws and enforce the laws, and then they cherry pick on the laws. I mean, have you ever heard anybody be held accountable for any? Look at my videos. Anybody being held accountable. And I tried confronting politicians, and they usually put up people in the way so we can't speak. And so I can't be heard. So I also did it with lawyers and judges in courts, out of courts, outside of courts. And but it was just me alone. I got some people to listen, not many. But now with the use of the internet, I can help a lot more people. And I feel blessed. Because, like I said, because of what I know, I was put to death. It was so painful. I wanted to die. I wanted to die. But I had that awakening moment, and then I eventually started begging the Almighty, help me through this. The pain. Pain I had to endure every day for months, almost 2 years. And when they stomped my head, nearly caved in my skull, made my head swell up. I promised the Almighty that I would continue what I'm doing, what I was doing, and I'm doing it now. And thank God for the internet, because I can reach so many more of you. So I feel blessed when any of you listen. Before I leave this earth, I want to make sure you know what I know somebody does. I've been looking for someone to pass the torch. And what I do and what I say and the way I think is it's a lot easier now because everything I ever read is on the internet. So I could point it out to you so quick, so fast. Look at my videos. I'm not just one, two, there's a whole lot of them. and you can put them together. This one guy's taking all my videos, he's saving all these videos, and he puts likes, and I thanked him because he's watching the videos, putting them together, and making it make sense. Okay, I just want to go over here real quick. Where is it? Okay. I am the thing that you need. She looked me deep in the eyes. She touched me so to start. That's why I made this right here. Come on now, who do you think you are? Bless you. Baby, you understand me now. That's our government. That's our government. See? I do talk about a whole lot of laws. You see, I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm not far from a stable genius. I'm just trying to help you. And once I get this through to you, I can die a happy man. Thank you. Good night.